worry, your hair looks great.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey.
Oh God.
So during this quarantine, this is way out of my league. But because we are on quarantine, I have decided to take a challenge and try to grow a beard. That is way out of my league because I'm not big on facial hair, but my dad challenged me like during quarantine grow a beard. So I like a challenge, so I'm doing it.
Well, good for you. Is he doing the same?
Well, no, he's had a beard for years, and for years he's been trying to convince me to grow one at least once. So during quarantine, I decided that I would do it.
So during the summer months, just when it's getting super hot, you're gonna grow a beard, huh?
Looks like it.
Well, best of luck.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see how it turns out. Oh boy. So how's everybody?
Good.
Good.
Alive.
Alive?
Yeah.
Anything you want to tell me? Okay, a couple things we want to go over as primarily ethics, and then we'll pull out the review sheet and we'll start going over, make sure you guys are okay on that. If we were in class, I would actually have you guys, work on it in small groups, and then you could review where you found the information and, book chapters and things like that. But I'm not sure the best way to go about that. So I'll think about it and figure out the best way to do that. So let's review a little bit on some of the points. Just want to make sure you're very clear on libel and ethics. What's the best defense against libel?
Truth. Truth, yeah.
Yes. Everybody got that? Truth? Write that down. Write it down. Write it down. Ben, write it down. You're not writing. What would a person who sues you for libel have to prove? If it's a scratch, I'm going to kill somebody. It's a scratch. No, it's not. Okay, good.
That they had to prove that what you said caused harm to them in some way, right?
Yes. And what would be the easiest way for someone to document harm?
Loss of money.
Correct. You inhibited their ability to earn money, by damaging their reputation. They couldn't earn money, basically. Good. What is another qualification of a libel lawsuit? What else would somebody have to prove? Where's my folder? Pardon me a moment. Folder is over here.
Is it that it was a malicious intent?
Correct. That you were intending to cause harm. So for example, in journalism, we confirm everything twice. But there's only so far we can go. So for example, if, oh no, we lost Ben. Whitney.
I'm here.
Make up some signs for Ben.
Oh, no,
Okay, I
not
got
again.
you.
Oh,
Nate.
oh great.
Come on.
No, it's Ben's turn now. Jeez.
Okay, the chat's on. If somebody wants to chat with Ben, or okay,
Is it-
I got it.
you got it.
Yeah, I got it. I can type the questions in and he can respond.
Okay.
Super screen girl Whitney.
Yeah.
That can be your superpower.
got my email open. I'm just gonna try and send him a note back too.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
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 Yes, we got you.
All right, then I'm gonna leave and rejoin.
Okay. There's Cole. I see Cole. I can only see like 6 at a time. I don't really like seeing myself because I don't look like myself. Kind of scare myself. I have a neighbor. I never knew she was not blonde. I see
Is
you,
he
Ben.
back?
Not yet.
Nice mullet, Dane.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Thanks. I dyed it too. Can you see it's like blondish?
Yeah, I saw that.
Nice.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
sick.
Here's another way I want to
Beautiful.
show you guys how news is my passion. See these today magnets right behind me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hey, Dane, does it blow in the wind?
I mean, I haven't been outside in probably like a week, so I'm not sure.
My hair,
I guess
my
so,
hair is
yeah.
dying to get some attention. Like a haircut for me is so overdue right now.
Yeah, you're looking pretty wild there, Mitch.
I try to get like a bright like white bleach blonde, but like my hair I never dyed my hair, so it turned like an amber. So I was like, roll
That's
with the
pretty
punches, I
good.
guess.
It does look cool though.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you could be like, total hairband, white snake or something,
Now I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah.
All right, we're good.
So Kyle, tell us where we are today.
Oh, okay. I'm in a Dali painting, Salvador Dali.
Really?
I'm not. Yeah, I don't know what this one's called.
I don't
but-
recognize that one.
Yeah, I just Google imaged. He's one of my favorite artists.
Yeah.
He's pretty
Me too.
weird.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. Okay. We were talking about malicious intent.
Mm-hmm.
How would somebody prove that? Styles are on a roll. What do you got?
If they just completely made it up, if it was just a complete lie with no evidence or anything, I don't know.
Close. Using something you know is incorrect. So somebody would have to prove that you strayed from news gathering practice, which is confirming everything twice, or you misquoted somebody, or you used records that you knew were false, or completely disregarded data. Okay, but that you used sources that you knew were not reliable. Okay, so basically poor news gathering. That would be a pretty solid way to prove malicious intent. Okay. When you get to libel and slander, we didn't talk enough about this, but what about when we talked about fair comment and criticism? Do you remember what that is? Water bottle.
It's protected by the courts.
Yes, why?
For writers to comment on and criticize the public in order to protect the First Amendment.
Okay, you're circling the drain.
Like reviews for like shows and stuff.
Exactly. Fair comment, criticism of a work of art or performance, music. Okay. What do we have? What is the, God, I hate this trackpad. What is the sort of rule of thumb? What is the guideline on this?
You're protected as long as you do not misstate any of the facts on which you base your comments or criticisms.
Well, it's not even just facts.
If you're harming the individual's reputation,
Exactly. And how would you do that?
like pretty much like example, like saying that this person sucks, right? The example that you were talking about, the actresses, how they suck, how they never should have been in the acting industry to begin with because their current roles are not their norm.
Right. So if you went beyond their performance, which is skills, and you went to something that's personal, so saying that they're talentless, that's beyond critiquing their performance. And you are then interfering with their ability to earn a living. Does that make sense? You've gone to personal. Does that make sense? What about when a public official does that? We hear that all the time. We hear that about journalists all the time lately. This is a bad person. They do bad work. They've always done bad work, and they're always going to do bad work. We hear this about journalists all the time. It's fake news. They've done this. And there's personal comments about people. Oh, that's just a disabled person. How does a public official get away with this?
Because they're a public official.
Exactly. What's that called? So we didn't talk enough about this last week. I want to make sure you know why this happens.
Qualified privilege?
Exactly. They are allowed to say this because they are, especially if they're in the course of their official duties, they can make comments pretty much about anybody, anything, because they say it about other leaders, right? Oh, so-and-so, like things you're hearing about China. I don't know if you heard this advertisement, I don't know if you would hear it. It's for a congressional race, District 8. It's in our area. And this person, I don't know who this is. I just saw it airing saying, we're going to make China pay for inflicting this virus on us. Wow. I'm thinking, okay,
I got an email today from the Pennsylvania Democrats Association and about a Harrisburg Republican supposedly equating the COVID-19 response to the regimes of Hitler and Stalin.
Oh my.
Quote, more and more I go back to the German Democratic Nationalist Socialist Party, the Nazi Party. I go to the Union of Soviet Socialist Republicans, the Soviet Socialist Republic, the USSR. This is a socialist playbook on Wolf's reopening process of the state.
Boy.
Then it outlines a number of far-right claims by other Republican members of the PA House of Representatives all through March through April. Wow. But yeah, that was today, like an hour ago.
Wow.
I don't know if that's covered under qualified privilege or not. I guess it is.
Yeah, until it gets towards hate speech, it would be covered. What about intrusion? We talked a little bit about this, but I want to make sure you understand public place and public figure. We talked about public figures. That's anybody who's elected. And they are subject to more comment and criticism on a lot of different things. There's more transparency about, say their investments, where their kids go to school. I mean, you name it, everything. Journalists have the same level of transparency. We have to sign conflict of interest. It involves everything from, your investments to where your kids go to school, to where you go to worship if you choose to do so. I mean, it involves everything. How and where you do your recreating, that's just the price. But what would happen if you are, a friend of mine posted this picture the other day. He's in Southern California and says, I was looking at the phone number for this golf course. I was going to make a reservation, and I found out that I'm in a picture on their homepage. So remember we talked about if you go get a ticket and you're, going to a Pirates game and the little fine print says, we have the right, to take your image and use it for promotional purposes. And most people aren't aware of that. So you could be on camera, they could take your image, they could put it in a program, like you give that up. Right?
Yeah, I honestly don't have a problem with that, because like I came there, I would be there like to have a good time and like this, and that's what they want. Like they want pictures of you like having a good time, showing like people that like this can be a fun experience and like they can get your attention.
Sure. This is a horrible picture of my friend. Everybody's like, who's that fat old guy? He got flamed on Facebook. So going on a diet, I mean, it was awful.
All
I know.
you wanted to do was have fun.
I know. Like, well, Frankie, not the reaction you expected, huh? Tough crowd, but I know. Harry thought like, oh, he's so cool with like using it. I'm like, wow, that didn't turn out the way you thought it would, did it? But that's just an example. He had no idea. They wouldn't have to get a release. If we did it in the media and say he had like one of his kids with him, we would get a release. We would be very careful with that. You know, put that photo in the newspaper. Just an example. There was a lawsuit.
Oh, okay. I had a question. At what age can you like legally start taking like photographs of like kids, like celebrity kids and stuff?
If they're in a public place, you really don't have to ask, but it's the difference between what's the law and what's ethics. You know, the law is, I believe, 13, but you have to think about, you know, safety. And would you want, you know, depends what they're doing. Are you intruding? You know, are you intruding on family time, or are they out and about and do they expect to be photographed? That's where I draw the line. That's where any ethical journalist would draw the line.
Okay.
Paparazzi are different.
Okay.
You know, that's, you know, there's a movement, a lot of the mothers of, you know, celebrity mothers are saying, we're walking the kids to school, we're dropping the kids off to school. That's ridiculous. We are the celebrities. The kids are not. Leave them alone. So, and often they'll release, like Princess Charlotte, you know, they just released her 5-year-old photograph. That should be sufficient unless they're out at an official event, and then they'll do the walk.
But even so, like, shouldn't they still ask you to use your photograph
Yes.
in publications? Like, wouldn't that even be crossing the line? Like, let's say I were to get a coffee near a coffee shop near my apartment, and they were to take a picture and put it on their website for any reason, with me just like waiting in line with, like, I don't know, for something with my cup of coffee. Wouldn't they ask for, like, first to use my picture?
The coffee shop?
Yeah, in their publication, and if they wouldn't, can you go against it?
You know, it
Because
depends.
technically it's freedom of press.
If the coffee shop has a sign up that says, you know, we have a camera, you know, we're recording, then you don't have any leg to stand on at all.
So, like, the kids walking to school, like, do they have a leg to stand on?
They're on a public sidewalk, so technically no. If they're on school grounds, then you know, technically a photographer would have to like notify the office and say I'm photographing and those things. But you know, it's the line between the law and ethics. What you can do and what you should do. Leave the kids alone. You know, what kind of day are they going to have in school? Somebody shoving a camera in their face. Do you want to be responsible for them having a bad day at school? That makes sense?
Yeah.
You know, there's plenty of events at schools where teachers are, you know, allow reporters to come in and photograph what the class is doing. Maybe they're having somebody come from the aquarium and they're going to have, you know, some exhibits, like, you know, different types of whales, and reporters can go in and photograph the students interacting with, you know, some engagement or enrichment activity. That's far more interesting than photographing some kids walking down the street going into their building.
Yeah. Back in December in Middletown at one of the elementary schools, this was a kindergartner, and her father is in the military, and he was coming home, and what he and the family wanted to do was to surprise their daughter at school.
Yeah.
So they did that, and the news people were there too, and showing the moment of her dad walking into the classroom.
Oh my gosh, that's adorable. That's adorable.
And the daughter saw it and burst into tears.
Oh my goodness! Of course she did. That's hard.
That's good news.
Yeah, those are heartwarming moments. The gray area is when you're in a public place, somebody photographs you, and somebody's not happy that their photograph is taken. And the argument is you have the expectation of privacy. Does that make sense? So there was a woman, I don't remember where, I want to say it was Iowa. I don't know that I actually ever saw it outside of a textbook, but she's walking out of a fun house with her kids, just like a little, 3-step staircase. And the wind blows up her skirt and she gets all flustered, she's trying to chase her kids, and it's not a very flattering photo. Okay. And she's not skinny. That's all I'm going to say. And so the photographer thought it was really funny that there's this, heavy set woman chasing her kids, her skirt's up, she's all flustered, and not a fun day, I think is what it was, or not funny, something along those lines. And she sued. She's like, that's not appropriate. I don't want the whole world to see what's under my skirt. And the argument, of course, was that you're in a public place. What's the problem? And the court sided with her, and they said, number one, she had the expectation of privacy, that she's walking out of a funhouse, didn't expect a photographer to be there. Number two, if she wasn't humiliated, there's no news value to that photograph, and it never would have run in the paper. And so she won the argument.
Because that could ruin her reputation, technically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you always need to be careful, because someone's reputation can get seriously damaged. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there was that woman in the photograph. We saw her, under things. Ha ha ha. We'll remember her for a long time. Now there's somebody, pardon me, half a second while I grab my drink. I forgot it's across the room. So I did this last week too, I think. At least the cat's asleep, right? I had a meeting with the dean, and the cat was like on my head. I kept going like this, and nobody could see what I was doing. They thought I was waving. Go ahead, Mitch. You're going to say something?
No, I was going to say that, well, at least you're probably glad now that it's asleep and not awake, and bouncing that place.
Hopefully you didn't jinx yourself.
I know.
There's still a bit of class.
Because she is the devil. Okay. What would you do? Just trying to make sure. I want to make sure you. Other ways to protect yourself. We talked a little bit about note taking. So if you record notes or record interviews and you're taking notes, because you should never only rely on technology, I always have everybody, please state your name and your title and the contact information, okay? And then I will then say in the recorder, this is May 5th, 6 p.m. And then I write down in my notes everything. Okay. So that if anything ever comes up, it is documented. It's documented in 2 places. Okay. So if, God forbid, there's ever a lawsuit, it's documented. The only one I've ever been involved in, other than when my students were sued, and again, I wasn't there. I inherited that lawsuit. And this one I wasn't even involved in. I just got named in the suit because I was the section editor. Was a story about a woman who had survived domestic violence, and she was a counselor at a shelter. And I don't know why we're doing a story about her, other than we're just telling her story. And the photographer agreed to do the photograph, and she was only going to show, kind of up to her arm, kind of profile, arm or shoulder, a little bit of elbow, but just kind of stop at the elbow. And this was going to be our section front, in interior section front. So a photographer made all the arrangements. I had nothing to do with it. And she came, she's a pretty good photojournalist. So she came to my page and said, she positioned the photograph because I was not involved. And it was a written agreement. So you can see what's going to happen here, right? The woman said, nope, that's wrong. I can be identified. He can find me again, and and decide to sue the paper. So we were a pretty big newspaper chain. We were 48 papers. And
so it was only up to her elbow?
From her back. And said, I can be identified. He can find me. Because we used a different name. So Danita, the photographer, got sued. The writer got sued, and then, of course, the chain. And I got screamed at. I said, I was not involved. I did not make these arrangements. I presumed the big boss gave approval, but still it was my responsibility. So how much do you think it would cost to go to court to defend ourselves?
A lot.
A lot. So what do you think the ultimate decision was?
Just face the charges.
Yeah, settle out of court, pay her $5,000 and just
call it a day.
Yep. So I think we kind of got took on that one.
She got $5,000 to protect her elbow and her shoulder.
Yep, and
identified.
Still tell her story. Yeah. Because she didn't ask us to take it off the website. She didn't say that, copies need to be, pulled back. Which is what, I believe if you were truly fearful that you could be identified, you would ask us to, recall all our copies and take it down off the website and do these things. But maybe she wasn't aware of those things. I don't know. But if she had a lawyer would say, this is what you need to do. You compromise the security of your source. So there's that. So I would never, ever enter any agreement without your legal counsel getting involved. Because if she's going to come back and say that you intentionally harmed her, your number one priority in any news gathering operation is to protect your sources. So if she's going to come back and say you compromised her, that will follow you. So if you sign some agreement, pay her off, you have to argue then for confidentiality. You cannot talk to anybody about this. So keep those 2 things in mind. Okay. Now, do we ever talk about embargoes?
No.
Okay, write this down. This is a legal term.
What is it again?
Embargo.
Embargo.
EMBARGO. Embargo. Is anybody interested in public relations? Mitch, put your hand down. You are not going to public relations.
I was kidding.
Okay, it's over my dead body.
What's wrong with public relations?
evil of journalism.
Yes, even the mullet guy knows.
That's what my PR professor said.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, my best friend from Michigan State is in PR, and he's writing a book, and I'm like, let me proofread it for you. He's like, you're not going near my book. But he is very good, and I would have, if he wasn't, home with 2 kids, I would have invited him to talk to you, and he does a pretty good job of saying how journalists can and should use PR professionals. So, it's a love-hate relationship. So, if somebody writes a press release, I'll put one on D2L. I'm surprised I didn't. Key things you have to pay attention to are not only the contact information, but right across the top, probably on the right-hand side, it will say, usually for immediate release. Okay. If it is something from a corporation, so this is May, by the end of June, like companies will have their, second quarter results. They, by law, have to release them. They'll say for release on June 30th, for example, and they'll probably have a time, 8 a.m., 9 a.m. But if they send it out to you on Monday and the release is Friday, it's probably coming from, a scientist or some sort of science health related. They always release them on Friday because they go out to the science journals, which publish on Friday morning. So they want it out into the science journals first before it goes out to the mainstream press, because scientists and researchers don't care about us. That's called an embargo, when they make their release of information held for a specific time. Makes sense? Called a news embargo. And you're dying. You were just dying, because you're sitting, and you're trying to interview people, and you want to write this, and you're gonna hit the world at the same time everybody else is. So you've got to do your best to get the sources lined
So
up.
it was make release of information held.
Yeah, to a specific time. If you blow the embargo, it's not.
So like,
You're not breaking a law.
do you mean like with?
Okay, lost you, Amir.
Hello?
Yeah, we lost you.
Okay, I think my Wi-Fi is acting up.
Uh-oh.
But I can still hear y'all. Just type when. I'll probably just leave it if it's bad, and then I'll go back in with my phone.
Okay, I can hear you. Just got a little bit of an echo.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep, I got you.
Okay. Did you hear what I asked?
No, all I heard you say was, "Do you mean?" And then that was
Okay,
all.
I was asking like, do you mean do you also mean it in when it comes to like advertisements and stuff? Or like, let's say like with movies and stuff, like if you look at maybe what movie was big? Like, I don't know, maybe with movies and stuff. I'm just thinking.
Not so much. This is really
Because like, not so much.
no. This is really information.
Okay.
So there is occasionally somebody would blow an embargo and say, I don't care if I have to wait till Friday noon. I'm going to publish it on Wednesday. That's it. I don't care. This is too important. Especially, again, it's usually health information, health or research information. Like, this is ridiculous. This is important to people. We can't do this. We can't wait. What do you think would happen?
Sued.
Hmm?
They might get sued because they went beyond the embargo and decide to publish it anyway. Or
Well-
people could get too hyped up about something that they weren't supposed to know about for a period of time. It can cause problems.
Not usually. They can't really get sued because it's not a law, it's more of a practice.
They would lose information from that same person. Like they lose
Exactly.
trust.
Yeah. They would never get that information ever again. They would not be trusted. You know, we trusted you to be professional, respect our process, hang on to this information, and you blew it. You're not going to get it. Pardon me?
Would you ever say that's more worth it to leak the information early that losing, like it's more worth losing that person leaving information early?
Yeah, they wanted to be first, but then
Can you hear me?
you kind of got an echo.
Okay. Let me try this one.
You guys are having a tough time today.
At some point, it's just going to happen to all of us.
I know.
I'm waiting.
Yeah.
It's all gonna blow up. I couldn't even get into Hack. I tried to log in at 10 and kept saying error, error, refresh everything. I'm like, no! I completely logged out at 4 o'clock for a reason.
I tried to get into a software from one of my other classes to do my newsletter,
Mhm.
and it booted me out, wouldn't let me in. I was supposed to have a Zoom meeting. Couldn't even have anything to show for it.
Oh boy.
So I had to reschedule it and like restart my whole computer and everything. So
Oh,
maybe
boy.
that's what it needs. Needs a reboot.
No. Well, this one was off. I mean, I usually let it rest, especially because I got so many classes Monday and Tuesday. I definitely let it rest, overnight. Blame the cat. Nate, what do you got there?
Oh, it's a little penguin plushie.
It's a pretty big plushie.
Yeah, cost me like $5.
Aw. Pretty
Can you
cute.
hear me now?
Yeah, keep talking. I'll tell you how if you have an echo.
All right. So I just asked if it's like sometimes more worth it release the information early, than losing a potential source.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
So it's still no go.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, you're in a tin can. I think your headphones.
That's not good.
No, it's not good. But you look good.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it.
You got better headphones than I do. So, what is your reaction when you read about anonymous sources?
I guess a little hesitant because
Okay.
you don't know if it's like a Joe Schmo that lives in a cardboard box outside, or you'll know if it's actually like a professional that really studies and has credentials about the information they're supplying.
So credibility. You worry about the credibility. Okay. Anybody else?
What do we think about when we hear the term anonymous source?
Yeah, if you hear or you're reading news or listening to news and you say, "Oh, an anonymous source, told NBC News," or a source familiar with the investigation told the
Sounds
Washington Post.
Sounds like, my first thing would be like, It sounds like there's a lot of ambiguity. I mean, it's newsworthy, and it's attention grabbing.
Mhm.
But the what's the word? The credibility always lingers.
Yeah. Anybody else? Well, that's what the issue is. The reaction of most people, research shows that people have concerns. They say, well, why would somebody speak anonymously? And are they speaking as truthfully if they're speaking anonymously? Are they exaggerating? Do they have an agenda? You know, what is their motive? And are they, first thought is like, well, they must be in danger. Are they gonna, are they a whistleblower, for example? But the last probably 6 years, we've had more and more use of that. When there's a scandal. So, for example, I remember the worst case I ever heard was during the Bill Clinton Monica Lewinsky scandal. So I'm in Sacramento. I got the news on in the morning, and I'm listening, and it says an anonymous source told the Dallas Morning News. So I'm thinking, here I'm listening to the NBC affiliate, which is our local affiliate, reporting that anonymous source told the newspaper, and it's on my station. So you're going to tell me that they're going to trust this person told a reporter in a different state, and they think that that's okay. I have issues with that. It's one thing, if it was maybe another reporter in the chain, maybe in the state, because, TV always reports what's in the paper. They would say, oh, in today's paper, that's not unusual. But I had a real problem reading, listening that somebody's reading the paper, probably on an AP wire, saying that that is okay. Because there's no way that they verified. They called that reporter and said, tell me that this is, legit. But they, because it was a scandal, they believed that, that this was okay. I had significant problems with that. So there's a book, it's called like, probably on my bookshelf, the 13 worst days of news. And it's also all about the really, really bad reporting during the time that the Monica Lewinsky scandal was like in the news, and just said how we suspended all of our news practices just to try to be first over this scandal, and things like that were happening all the time. And we didn't look to, do what we do best, and all the other things that were happening in the world. And all we were reporting on was, this scandal. So that's not a good thing.
Who's that book by? I mean, I could look it up. I just didn't know if you knew by chance.
I can't see that far.
It's okay. I can look it up later. You said it's 13 worst days of news?
Something like that. 13
Okay.
scandalous days or something. Yeah, it's actually pretty well written. Somebody just sent it to me too. I didn't ask for it. I think they thought I would use it for my investigative class. Yeah, no, it's good. Made a good point. So if you have a source that says, love to talk to you, you can't use my name, what do you do?
Well, I don't know.
You don't know. Anybody?
I think you would consider how valuable their information is if you really want to use an anonymous source or not.
Sure. Is anybody comfortable asking them why? Say,
Yeah.
I guess it depends on the circumstance.
in the story, right? Depending what it is that you're writing about.
Like if they found their spouse dead, like, I don't know, that, like, or if a neighbor or someone that wasn't relevant in that scenario just, like, appeared there. Like, oh, how would you know about this? Like, I don't know. I just kind of came here out of instinct. Like, no one's gonna want to give their name to something they're relevant to, depending on what side of the fence they're on.
Or maybe they're a witness. Okay. Okay, somebody else just chimed in. So you've got a couple options. I would ask, why, do you wish to proceed? Why do we need to protect you? Okay, that's not a bad question to ask. Okay, to say we rarely do that, and again, list the reasons I just gave you, because readers find that less credible. This is a valuable story. Readers need to know about this. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come to us, or you wouldn't be, you don't want to go there, because you won't be able to just do that. You would have to talk to your editor and convince your editor, and possibly more, probably higher up the food chain, section editor, news editor, go up, that this person is credible and that there's a credible reason. Okay. I think I gave you an example. There was an editor in Northern California, and he wrote, it was a pretty small paper, but he wrote a pretty big investigative story about how the Highway Patrol, once they finished an investigation that involved confiscated weapons, that they would then sell them. They weren't kept as evidence. So he had several Highway Patrol officers that testified, but they had to be kept confidential because they were ratting out people, on the force who thought that this was an injustice. And it was obviously quite illegal, but they felt compelled that this needed to come to, the Attorney General's attention. But they also had families and they didn't want to be killed for it. So he agreed. And so he knew them and he trusted the evidence that they were presenting. We had an incident where we had some great big storms and some squalls, and there was a neighborhood that every time there was a storm, like all the telecommunications would go out of the phone and everything, and the trees falling, they're right by the interstate, and they could never call and report anything because the phone lines were always out. This is an older neighborhood, it's an older Chinese neighborhood, and yet they didn't want their names used because they didn't want, this is kind of before cell technology, but cell technology barely worked because there's a freeway right there. So all you needed was maybe a helicopter, or if there was a fire engine going by, and it would disrupt cell technology. You couldn't put a tower up because there's schools. Okay, probably different now, but so the residents didn't want their names used because they didn't want people to know, hey, you could come rob my house and I can't call for help. And so we thought, well, there's a community center. Can we get people in the community center to report about this? Because that's kind of a valid concern. Can we get somebody who represents the community? Because there's always neighborhood centers, parks and stuff like that. So we kind of went around that because, it was the old Chinese neighborhood. So it made sense. Or can we get some of the churches to talk? We get into the Korean neighborhood. The church is kind of the center of the social life. So there's that. Your best option, if you can't get somebody to change their mind, is then say, who can confirm this? Who else can I speak to? Okay, write that down. And until you write it down, that means I'm giving you a hint, okay? Example, we had a person telling us what was going on with an Indian casino development. Deep cover, deep source. And my reporter calls me at like 3 a.m. It's like, I gotta blow this source. And I said, well, why would you do that? And she said, because he's the only person saying that the casino is going to pay for all the security. And that's the only sticking point with the county. They're gonna vote against this casino, but they're gonna pay for it. They just haven't said it yet. I'm like, ask him who else can tell him. She's like, oh, okay. And she hangs up. I'm like, what is wrong with you? That's a basic question. You know this, And so then she just said, well, I can call the sheriff. And maybe the sheriff does. Sheriff says, oh yeah, we knew that. Problem solved. But that's your basic question. If you can't go on record, who else can? Somebody else must know this. You are in danger of, losing your job, or there's physical danger. Somebody else must be involved. Who else can confirm this for me? Because they're talking to you, so they're desperate for this information to be out. Who else can confirm this for me? Okay, you got it? So ask them why. I have to confirm your credibility. Who else will speak to me on record? And then you can also ask, well, who's going to oppose you? Which is not a bad thing to ask, because they might go on record too. Okay, but you have to verify the person's credibility. Be extra careful. Okay, got it? Okay, what do we know about FOIA requests?
They take time to be processed.
Sometimes, not always. There's a certain amount of time to which they have to respond. The language is very, very specific. So you have to say, in accordance with this statute, we request the following documents. You know, we want these emails, want these phone records, want these personnel records. It has to be very, very specific. It has to be very specific, the citation, the statute, and cite why. Okay, but it's not hard to find how to write that. Okay, if you guys would go to Student Press Law Center and it tells you exactly what to say. Whoever you're subpoenaing, they have, I think, within 30 days. They can try to charge you exorbitant amounts. This is going to cost you this amount for copying. It's going to cost this amount for staff to copy this. You can always fight that and say, it doesn't cost that much. It doesn't cost, you know, $80 an hour for somebody to copy one page. That's ridiculous. I'd be happy to do the copying. And I only charge $5 an hour. You know, I mean, there's sometimes if there's other organizations wanting the same information, you can also work together on it. Even though you're probably going to come out with completely different products, you know, you've got different news stories you're going to come out with. You might even, you know, work with radio. They might let you all three in together at the same time, which works out pretty well. But 1966, under President Nixon, okay. Surprisingly, he believed in that law and believed it needed to have structure. Some states have what's called a public intervener, so that you don't have lots of people suing the state, and you have the public intervener takes all these different cases and says, we will, yes, sue this one, we will sue the state, and we will not sue the state on this one. And it saves the state money, it saves lots of frivolous lawsuits, and it saves lots and lots of time. So that's not a bad thing. Okay, let me see what else I have on my list. Where'd you go? Okay, I think that's, we talked a little bit about early in the semester, I hope you remember this, when you've interviewed a source and you've done a good interview and the source perhaps shares something unrelated to the story that you're interviewing about, and you're like, oh wow, that's a great story. I got a second story. You know, they just signed a contract. They're going to go forward with this development. This is great. They just settled the lawsuit. This is cool. I got another story. And you're halfway down and they call and they say, I wasn't supposed to tell you that. Can you hold that story? But you just told me. What do you do?
You obviously don't publish it.
Why not? Somebody else is going to get it. She said it. It's not wrong.
It's not ready. Can't they sue you for that?
Nope.
What's
You're
on the
sue happy,
record?
aren't you? You want to sue for everything, don't you, Whitney?
No, but like people are sue happy these days. Like there are so many circumstances to where you literally could get sued.
Well, it costs $8 to file a lawsuit, so it doesn't really matter. What do you think, Nate?
Don't publish it, because I mean, despite the fact that you obviously can, without getting any real trouble, you'll lose a source and you lose that person's trust, even though it was technically said and you had the consent through the contract. It's still do you want to lose a source or do you want to go with a story?
Well said. Anybody disagree with Nate?
I'm with Nate, but at the same time, you could also lose your job if you don't publish it.
So how do you save your job?
That's the golden question, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a way.
Is there?
Yeah.
You never mentioned that you heard that information.
No, you gotta play a little hardball. Styles, do you know?
I wish.
Oh, come on! Am I the only mean? Am I the only mean one? I am. I'm the only mean one.
What is it? What's the answer?
You tell the source. You do not speak to anybody but me. When you are ready, I get it first. I'll hold it, but I get it.
What about your job?
Well, what are they going to do? Fire you? If
They
fire
could.
you, then they don't get the story, right? And if they fire you, then you walk with that story to somebody else, probably a competitor.
Yep.
How does that look? Oh, here comes the cat. So, I mean, that's what you do. People think, oh, that's hardball. And I don't think so. You've got the story. If you're going to protect your source, which you should, all right, you always protect your source. It's probably get away from my computer. It's somebody's inexperience. They shared something like, oh, this is news. You'll be interested to know. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Okay, you did. I have it. I can source this every which way till Tuesday. I could run with it, but I won't. So it means you owe me, which means I get this story. That's what I would do.
Kind of gangster.
Pardon me?
It's kind of gangster.
It is. If there's competition, that's what you got to do.
Got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes.
I like that.
I'm surprised you didn't think of it.
I like that. I should have thought of it.
Yeah, you should have. I'm disappointed in you. Well, and that can happen too sometimes if you're following a lead on something, this is especially like if you cover corporations and you're just picking up on something and you're circling around it and you're just kind of like wandering around a bullseye, and then finally, a company finally calls you and says, all right, come in and we'll talk. And we'll talk if you can hold it. You're like, okay, if I get it, I will hold it if I get your story. Let me have the whole thing. And then you're going to die for like 10 days. You're like, God, I'm going to explode, But then you've got the story and you've got it right, as opposed to somebody else who might go on rumors. But yes, but it's mine.
If another writer of your company decides they want to work on the story, can you collaboratively work on the story? Because there may be some angles that they didn't think of while you were constructing it.
I've done that. Another writer and I were both sniffing on it's called a fuel cells story. So it's my story because the technology. What the hell is wrong with you? Go. Because I covered transportation and basically anything environment, but he covered development. So the fact that there was Ballard Power and Honda and Toyota and somebody else, another Canadian transportation company, we're going to build a huge fuel cell factory. The factory part was Mike's deal. So he got it from some brokers and some, people who were going to, sell the property. So that was his. So how much it cost, how many people would be working there, you know, what the value of the transaction was his. So he's sniffing around it. I'm sniffing around the fuel cell. Where's it going to be used? We got it in some buses, you know, so we were able to work on it together because then we got double confirmation. You know, we know that there's a sale happening. I know these companies are coming. You know, it's a heck of a story. And he was a heck of a reporter. I was happy to work with him. If it was somebody else, I wouldn't have worked with him. So it is possible. But the one big one I had was when there was this company and they were a little bit in debt because they trusted a kind of like a dream team to do their, you know, redo their portfolio. And Monsanto was going to pay off. It was like a $5 million loan, but Monsanto was going to pay it off for them. And I just kept hearing that this was happening and this was happening. And so finally they called me and said, all right, come on in. I'm like, cool, all right. And I was able to bring a photographer too. So we actually had nice photographs with it. They were stabilizing rice bran, which was kind of a really big technical process. And, so it worked. So sometimes things go your way. Okay, you guys have your review sheet open?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go through these yourselves, or what do you want to do? How about I ask you the questions, you answer, and then you tell each other where the information is.
Okay.
And I keep quiet. Okay, first question. Everybody ready?
Mm-hmm.
Name the 3 reasons why an elected body can close a public meeting and go into executive session or closed session.
Wait, so what are we doing here? Are we answering?
Yes, you're going to answer and then tell me where you found it so you can study for it.
Oh, okay.
Lucas. Okay, who's got the answer? Oh my goodness.
Can't find it.
I think I found it.
Okay.
It's not in the book. It was from when we met with, I think it's Ms. LaRoe,
Uh-huh.
when we had the meeting with her about like how to prepare for a meeting or what to expect during a meeting, those kind of things. So an executive session can go into effect when discussing things about like the legislative body that's not supposed to be discussed, like, you know, firing of a public official. Someone suing someone, I think, and verge of making decisions. Is that the question?
I would call it collective bargaining. They're going to discuss, their employment contracts or union bargaining, something like that. That makes sense? Everybody got that? So personnel decisions, litigation, legal strategy, and collective bargaining. Those are the 3 reasons.
Was it in the book? Because I didn't see it.
I didn't either.
I just want to make sure I didn't miss it.
Yeah, I'm double checking chapter 13.
You said it was legal strategies.
Personnel. And collective bargaining.
Something else.
Yeah, I'm looking at between 13 and 14. I'm trying to say this is not my favorite.
So I went into the meetings chapter.
Yeah, it doesn't really give you a lot of information, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
No.
The third one, legal strategies, personnel, and what else?
Collective bargaining.
That's right.
Okay. Related to that, what is open meeting law? This should be in your notes. I think this is what I talked about the last time I saw you, which was in March, first week of March. This is all about requirements.
Require that notable exceptions, most meetings of federal and state government agencies and regulatory bodies be open to the public along with their decisions and records.
Okay. It's also about notification. How do they notify the public that they're having a meeting?
Go through my notes.
I think I put this on D2L. I think there's a folder. That's not it.
You said how does the public know that it's happening?
How does the governing body notify the public that it's happening? What are the requirements for posting?
They can put out an agenda of a meeting that is to be occurring. That way they at least know if it's something they could have interest in.
Right, they have to post it where the meeting is occurring. They have to post it at City Hall, wherever that is, so there may be 2 different places. And they also have to mail it out to what's called a newspaper of record. So at Altoona, they mail it to the Altoona Mirror, and they probably send it to every other, place where there happens to be. Some states require that any newspaper who wants to be the newspaper of record, that's a legal term, they have to file every single year. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes like once you're it, you're it. So if you're on D2L, there's a folder. It's called Resources, AP, Media Law and Ethics. And there's a document called Issues, Citizen Rights, 01 PA Open Records. So that talks about all these things that have to be done.
Oh yeah.
But you know, the preliminary agenda has to be set about 72 hours. So if the meeting is on Monday, which is pretty common, they would have this document ready by Thursday, and then the final agenda would have to be set 24 hours before meeting. So if something were to happen and they want to add something to an agenda, they can make a motion at that meeting and say, we're making a motion to add XYZ to the agenda, because they have the right to respond to, you know, ongoing, you know, emergencies. I mean, they have to have that flexibility. Okay, everybody good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something you have to pay attention to. If you ever look at meeting minutes, is when did they adjourn to? And again, this is probably in your notes, but even though you think they may be adjourning to the next regularly scheduled meeting, again, that's a legal term. That's what you would always put at the end of your meeting story. Council next meets at its regularly scheduled meeting on Tuesday, 7:30, you know, at City Hall. They can adjourn to a special meeting if they have something else coming up and not tell you. They don't have to tell you. Keep that in mind, that can happen. They don't have to tell you things if you don't ask. That's advice number 2. Okay. Number 1 is protect your source. Number 2, ask everything. They don't have to tell you if you don't ask. Okay, we're just going to skip one right now and we'll come back to it. What's the inverted pyramid? Its purpose, history, and the parts.
I thought I just saw.
Wait, which one did we skip to?
What is the inverted pyramid?
It's a news structure that places all the important information in the first paragraph or 2. And it's been used to write the first draft of history in US for generations.
Good.
And I found it on page 157, and it's the first page of chapter 8, the inverted pyramid.
Okay. Everybody got that?
Yep.
Dane, you got it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what are the parts?
Are you asking me?
Anybody? You just
The 5 W's.
Who, what, when, where, why, how.
Okay, yep, that's in the lead. Oops, I just gave you one of the parts.
The
Oops.
lead.
Oops. Lead. What else?
The body,
I guess.
like important details.
Okay. What comes after the lead?
Maybe quotes.
Between the lead and the quotes. One more little teeny tiny paragraph. It's very important.
The nut graph?
Yeah. What is a nut graph? Somebody help her out.
Wait, what did she say? She cut out for a second?
It's the, I paused because it was like hesitation. It was a legitimate hesitation. Sorry, guys. It's the nut graph.
What's nut graph? Cole, do you know?
does it kind of piggyback on the lead and grabs the reader's attention?
Sure. It fills in the blanks. It adds some detail to the lead. Good.
Explains the context.
Yeah. If you have a person in your lead, you probably wouldn't put their name in the lead, but the nut graph is where you would put their name. Unless it's a person of infamy or, celebrity or something. You wouldn't say, an NBA player. Oh, maybe you would. NBA player is just positive, depending where you are. If we're reporting that in Pennsylvania and maybe it's a Utah Jazz player or something. You might. Okay. How did the inverted pyramid come about? Why do we have it?
Wasn't it like to efficiently get messages in like a war or something? Messages back and forth?
Yes, you're close. Which war?
World War II?
No, it's older than that.
I don't know.
What war? Wait,
Civil War?
Sorry.
Yes, because it developed here. Good. It's old. And using which invention?
The telegraph?
Yes. Good job, Amir. Yes. Because you had reporters traveling back and forth, and they would start sending their stories using the telegraph, and then it would cut out. So they would write chronologically, and people didn't know what happened. Like, oh, wow, they were doing so great. But that's not what happened. They got slaughtered. And then they said, well, why don't we write the end, right? What actually happened in case we get cut off. And so people know the news. And it kind of stuck that way. Inverted pyramid. Tell the ending first. Okay. What about the different structures of feature writing? We just did this.
Narrative.
Yep.
Informational.
Yep.
Focus.
Yep.
Wait, I didn't hear that last part. It was a bit googly.
Focus. Well, what did you miss?
No, I missed the third. I got narrative, informational, but the last word was a little like googly. I couldn't hear it.
Focus.
Okay.
Got it? So you got a really good graph in your book that tells you the different parts. Okay. So key to doing that successfully is that you have somewhere in there, you still have a theme paragraph and a transition paragraph. So you're telling the readers what it's about, and then you're transitioning to what it's about. So you started with your lead, which is a little bit different. It's narrative, or it's a focus, which is one person representing a whole population. And then you will transition to whatever it is. It's still going to be news writing. Eventually, you're going to get back into sort of a regular structure. But the difference is, of course, with these feature structures that you do wrap it up and you probably go back to the very beginning, to the opening. And that's a key difference, is that we have an ending with these. Well, that's significant. Okay, so I would look at that particular graph, see if I can remember what page that is. You'll find it. Anybody know where it is? What is it? Ooh.
Yeah, I have a thing of the graph here.
Yeah. Okay.
Page 206 and 207.
There you go. I was almost there. Yes. Ready to write that down?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great graph. Probably the best part of the book. Are you good with libel and defamation?
Yeah.
Yes.
What is libel?
Ouch.
defamation by print, writing, pictures, or any form other than speaking words or gestures.
Okay. And what does it do?
Gets you sued.
Sometimes.
Purposely ruins reputation.
Yeah, you're defaming someone's character by something you write, basically. And it can be a cartoon. There was Hustler, a famous case was Hustler magazine with Jerry Falwell having sex with his mother in an outhouse. And he sued, but the court decided against him because the reasoning was that nobody would ever believe that happened. And they're possibly right, but that's still pretty distasteful. That's still pretty horrific. You know, would you think differently of him having seen that cartoon? I don't know. How do you measure that? It's difficult. Defamation, excuse me, slander.
Or slander? That's the action or crime of making a false spoken statement damaging a person's reputation.
Exactly. So it is spoken words, for example, could be on TV or radio. Again, damaging somebody's character. Okay. We just talked about the defenses. We talked about FOIA. I think that's it. I think that covers everything on the quiz. So these will be, I will give you a group of questions and you will pick among them for your answers.
And how many questions again?
3 or 4. And then I
We
will.
have to answer them in full sentences or just like.
Yeah, this will be a short answer.
Okay.
And then there'll be AP. And I will email you the topics and I'll post the topics on the news item on the homepage of our course. Okay. Now we get to do the fun part. All the superlatives you sent?
Yep.
Oh, I forgot to do those.
I know you did. I'm disappointed. I was counting on you.
I know, I'm a creative person.
What?
Nothing. I was joking.
You were too busy dyeing your hair, huh?
Basically, the dye's getting into my brain. It's making me forget all my assignments.
I've heard that happens, actually. Okay, so I get to do this. Well, there's some were unanimous. So we'll start with those. I took some liberty with some of the phrasing, but so some were most likely to and some were best at. So when I asked you to, and you're going to get emailed these, by the way, I made a PDF out of them. I know. Why I didn't finish grading your papers. That and I was in meetings. I thought, well, I could do this in these meetings, right? So, for the person who entertained us the most and kept us entertained with his masterpieces, Kyle gets reward.
All right.
Best new artist. Wait, I gotta turn my background off. Wait, how do I do that? Where am I? I gotta turn my virtual background off.
Speech.
Oh no.
I want to thank all my classmates and colleagues. Couldn't have done it without you.
Oh, you're gonna see how dirty my house is. Yes. Oh, you can't see it. Is it backwards?
Oh, look at that.
Wait, I can see
I
it.
see it.
Yeah. Best
I
new
can't
artist.
see.
Dang,
I
that
can
looks like
see.
a
I can see.
Wow.
Fancy.
I'm honored.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
First ever award goes to.
Again, so that was kind of unanimous. I'm just saying. Hey, how about this one? I'm like, yeah, I kind of got the idea. Okay, so for the person who did the most gymnastics all semester, and you know who's this? Cole gets the award for the best cartwheels because his phone kept falling and he was doing loops.
Yeah.
I was so confused. I'm like, what do you mean cartwheel?
I don't know if you guys saw it as much as I did, but I don't. The first 3 weeks, he kept like, he's falling and he's hard.
Yeah.
All right, this is another unanimous one. These are for service and entertainment to COMM 222, and for bringing the best new do goes to Dane.
Oh.
I'll take it. I'll take it. Hard fought award right there.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say the mullet had to win something. If the
Of
mullet
course
didn't
it
win
did.
something.
Yeah.
Won the awards and all the hearts.
And if you recall, a couple of weeks ago when Mitch was having all his difficulty with connecting in class, we had some heroic efforts from Nate. So for service and dedication to COMM 222 and for being most like MacGyver, there's Nate. And Ben for service to and entertainment in COMM 222.
Right.
Ben, most likely to be a station engineer.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yes. And Whitney gets a double because this was one of mine and one that was unanimous. Whitney, dedication and service to COMM 222, best use of sign language, haha, signs, and best dressed. Signs, I had to do it, right?
Yeah, it was great.
I know. And of course, Mitch, we have to follow that with Mitch for his service and dedication and for being most likely to become an anchor. Because we know that's coming.
I feel honored. It's
Yes.
quite an honor.
We know it's coming because we heard your voice loud and clear. I just cannot connect. And it was just those smooth, mellifluous tones. We're like, that boy's got a future. We know it's coming. And of course, this whole time of being remote, we have listened to Styles' mellifluous tones, our lurker, for, oh, here she comes, for being the best voiceover this entire semester.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
There he is.
I'm bowing right now, but you guys just can't see
it. And last but not, yeah, get away. Last but not least, the person who's asked the best questions of all our guest speakers is Amira, who's most likely to become an editor. And that was unanimous too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Like I said, they have lots and lots of colors on them. You can't see it because I didn't use my color printer, but you will all get these in your email because I PDF'd them. I normally have, certificate paper, but I didn't find it. So it's probably in the office. So. Okay, any questions? Anything else I can do for you before I let you go?
Nope.
No.
Final quiz is next Tuesday.
Yep. You will do the short answer first. It will be timed, and then once you turn that in, then you will get the AP part.
Okay.
So.
It'll be through the Zoom meeting, right?
Yep. So
yeah.
It will be recorded, but I'll be here the whole time. So if you have a question, you can either chat me or you can, talk to me.
Awesome. Perfect.
Anything else?
Mm-mm.
You can see my cat. Come here, Grubby.
Aww.
Grubby.
Aww. Hello, kitty.
All right, you guys. Well, oh wow, yeah, you can totally see her.
Oh,
Yep.
she
Top one up there.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Here she comes.
That's the little troublemaker.
Yep. This is her. Yep. All right. Well, good luck with your last week of classes, and I guess I'll see you next week unless you need anything else.
All right.
All right.
Bye bye.
Take care. Be good.
Have a
See
good
ya.
week.